So Martin Garrix is back with a remix, and we haven't seen one of these in so long. So I was super excited that he actually dropped one of these. It was in collaboration with Space Ducks, and we don't know who that is. But I love that chunky bass line in this song. It's like slap house, but it's not slap house at all. It had this unique characteristic to it. And we're also going to look at some of those unique leads as well. So that really slidey lead, and also that second lead, that buzzer lead. So there's a lot of really cool sounds and techniques used in this song, and we're going to go over all of that in this project. And a lot of the sounds in this are from a new production stack called Black Label, which will be a limited release in a few weeks if you're watching this in time. And I was sure to throw in some of the samples from this project into the demo version. And you guys can check the demo version out now. Even if you don't really make this type of style, you can still grab those samples completely for free. But with that said, let's dive into it. All right, so real quickly, before I dive into like the sounds and everything like that, I want to go over the whole, not chord progression, but what the two chords that the whole song is revolved around. And it's actually revolved around two major chords. For how dark this song is, people always think like minor chords are dark and major chords are happy. Not all the time. Because what's going on here is, if I play this real quick, we got da 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 da. Those are two major chords. I'm playing the D major chord, and I'm playing the E flat or D sharp major chord. And the relationship between that, like the fact that these two chords are right next to each other, that's what gives it that dark tonality. Okay, so how is this useful? The fact that we're playing. But if we play the bass line here, we're pretty much going D to D sharp. And those are the two chords, D major, D sharp major. Everything is revolving around that. That's that slidey melody, the third melody as well, or the second melody as well, like that buzzer lead. Everything's revolving around these. And yeah, sure, there's some notes right here to give it some variation. Otherwise, it would just be like the same note going all the time. So you can add that variation. But the fact is, the whole song's based around these two chords. I think even the chord progression, it's the D major chord and then the D sharp major chord. So if we go into the Slidy Lead real quick. Let's actually go to the second half because there's more notes here. What chord is this playing? It's playing that same chord, that D sharp major chord, the one that 070 Shake. I mean, it is a remix, so like they were basing it off the original song, because she's singing this melody, this D sharp major, and then we shift everything up, just shift it up one. So if we take a look at that, so if we play it, then we go to this one, everything's based around that. If I put these two right on top, every note is right on top of each other. And I just found that really interesting. You can just kind of keep that in your mind. If you want to make something dark, you don't have to use a bunch of minor chords. There's probably like a name for what this is. This is probably like some type of technique or key. Do I know it? No. But I know the fact that if I use two major chords on top of each other, so if I use F major, then we go up one, you know, that I kind of know that if I want to make something dark, but have like a different dark tonality to it rather than using like two minor chords. And I just wanted to get that out of the way because a lot of the like remakes and things like that, they don't go over like the chord progression music. This isn't like music theory, like professional stuff, but yeah, so just keep that in mind. So let's move on to the actual chunk bass, the Martin Garrix chunk bass. So when I first heard this, I was thinking like, is it slap house? It's kind of like slap house E in a way. So when I first heard the bass, I wanted to get that like real sound in it. I wanted to get not real sound, but like that grungy, chunky sound. And in my head, if I'm going to sound design this, I want to get like a main, pretty much like a main synth layer. So like the main body of the sound, which was this one. That's pretty thick in itself. But if we play that, it's not really doing the job. What I did was I took some percussion samples. So we have, I'm not going to go over all these, but just like some, literally any sample that you can get your hands on, you can manipulate them like this original, like that, anything to give that top layer that tonality. So these together, this is literally just that top layer. We're not getting any like bass frequency out of this. We're not getting any bass tone out of this. We're just getting that top layer. And I think the best method, if you're going to layer percussions on top of each other, sometimes it can be good to change the pitch with it. So if I actually copy the pitch in here, this won't sound good. So what you want to do is take that same bass rhythm, take the rhythm, and let's actually do it right now. So we can copy this over into this pattern. So we can copy this over into this pattern. If we choose Alt K or Option K, whatever you're on, this will put it into a single line. So where'd it go? So right down here. And then I have everything up to C5 because C5 is like the main actual tone of the sound. So C5, it's going to stay the same pitch the entire time, which is good. We don't want this to change pitch. In some cases, you might want to pitch this a little differently. Maybe like I've made presets to where I want like that top layer to change pitch with the bass, but there's no real tonality to this. And honestly, the preset that I use here isn't really that. It's just like a saw preset. Okay, cool. In the processing, I have like a bunch of plugins here, like Neutron, like transient shaping, things like that. That's not as important as these two EQs. So EQs, besides the fact that they can like cut low frequencies, cut high frequencies, the most important thing you can think about when using an EQ is the fact that you can shape the tonality of the sound and you can customize it. EQs are like a customization of a sound, really, because I'm boosting. And once again, obviously I'm remaking a sound, so I had a reference here. But if you have a reference song in your project, this is what you can kind of do with it. So I wanted the high end to be really apparent in the sound. So if I take away these two EQs, so these are bypassed now, you know, that's a decent sound. You could use that in a song if you wanted to. But if we use these two EQs, we're just boosting those high mid frequencies. And we could, you know, and let's say like I wanted this to be right here. I think this was like the cleanest way I can get it, boosting these frequencies. But the overall point of this is the fact that, you know, EQs can just give your own flavor to a sound. So what I would do is I would bounce this bass into a sample and then use it as a sample. I wouldn't really want to do this every single time, like pull up these same ones. But the overall theme here is to just layer things on top of it, layer, you know, any sound you can get your hands on, like kicks, toms, anything like that, to give your sound a little bit more of that punch. So now for the sub bass, this was kind of the complete opposite process. Pretty much a sine wave. I messed with some of this stuff in here and put on some distortion, and I put a filter envelope on the filter cutoff. So this is literally all it is. And then we have our main bass. So the sub bass is just playing more sustained notes as well. So the sub is playing longer notes, where the chunk bass is pretty much just giving us that transient. Just that top layer. Without the sub bass, obviously it's not gonna hit as good. So the sub bass is so important for whatever song you're making. The sub is that's where a lot of the power is gonna come from. Now onto the Slidy Lead. This, as you guys could probably hear it in the original, a lot of it comes down to just the pitch bend. So we have our main vital layer, which if you guys want to check out how this preset was pretty much, for the most part, what I designed it around. If you check out the Mesto Dirty Flute video, this is where I kind of go in depth with this type of technique where we use a resonating filter in the key tracking. All this like jargon sounds like complex, but it's actually really simple. So the key tracking is at 100, which means if I play a C note, it's going to resonate at a C, whatever note I play on the keyboard. If I play like a G down here, it's going to play a G. It's going to resonate at that G frequency, which will just give us a super dirty sound. And then I took the mix back a little bit as well. But the most important thing here is actually the white noise on top. I'm sure you've heard this as well. White noise is so powerful. So if I take out the two white noise layers, I'll go over them in a second. and you play that in the mix, it doesn't pop through because this tone, this like the melody that we're playing isn't like a super high frequency. This melody isn't like super high on the keyboard. So like this melody really blends in if we don't have any white noise. I mean, white noise is just so important. So this serum is just a white noise layer right here. Just like a white noise layer. And then in the processing, I have a Schaefer box on here. Schaefer box 3 comes with the noise, which is so good. Like this made Schaefer box 10 times better in my opinion. So you can, I think by default there's a little bit of release, but if we put that release down to pretty much 10, so like pretty much 0, and we can customize if we want like less high frequencies, less low frequencies, we can mix in some white noise right there. And as far as for the pitch bend range is on 12, which is kind of what I always do if I'm going to do pitch bending on a synth for the most part. And on the long notes, it's just going down. And then on the short notes, it's just swooping up. And I'll actually show you guys an example of a song that I made using the same technique at the very end. I'll show you guys a little snippet of one of the Black Label demos where I used this in a similar context, but I just took like the main idea of this synth and just incorporated it into like a different type of song. So we got the chunk bass, we got the slidey lead. Next we got this, like I called it the buzzer lead. And take a look at this. If we look at the MIDI here, so this is pretty much just playing I think it's called the major fourth. So if I were to put the bass note of the chord we're playing, so remember, we're going D to D sharp. If I put the D down here, 4 notes up, this is the major part of that chord, that F sharp. And then right here, we go up 1 semitone, okay? And I just want to hammer that home that everything's revolving around those 2 major chords. So we're playing the F sharp, we're dominantly playing the F sharp right here, and then we're playing the G as well. So I just found that really interesting. And then as for this lead, I pretty much took that same synth before, almost identical to that first one, except there is a lower layer, which sounds horrible on its own. Like it doesn't really have a context, but it's giving us more low frequencies, but just different frequencies, I would say. So it's just supporting that and just makes it a lot dirtier. So this is really just a saw waves. I mean, there's some other stuff in here as well, distortion. The formant filter is kind of giving it that vocal type of sound. I don't want to get too deep into like the technical side of making this, but and the 10 out of 10 way to tell if you've all heard this before, if you take it out of the song, doesn't make a difference. And listen to this lead right here without that deeper layer. I mean, it's such a good technique. We've all heard it before. If you take it out and you can't really hear that there's difference, it probably doesn't need to be there. So that's pretty much the main sounds here. We have the top bass, we have the sub bass. Everything's pretty simple. And that's why I really wanted to go over the chord progression here. Everything's revolving around that, like the dark tone of, so interesting to me. And of course we have like reverses and things like that. And real quickly, I'll go over the drums here. These aren't really anything too interesting, except there's a couple of cool things happening. So I would say I'm going to make a separate video about this I'm going to call it Giving Your Drums Some Love, because I think if you just add some really small effects to your drums, it just makes the world of difference. And I think it adds like 30% to your song. I obviously made that number up, but it just adds so much to your song. Like for example, on the kick, I have a little like dusty top layer. Listen for it. I think it makes a big difference. It adds that like dusty layer and it makes it a little more, I guess it makes it a little more dirty. And there's other things as well. And then throughout the entire song, of course, we have like our hi-hat coming in. There's not really too much to say here. There's a lot of like random little bits and bops. that's pretty much the crux of this song, if we're to be honest. So we have those main top layers, and then there's some like other random things as well. Like a big tonal percussion, like this one right here. Right there. This adds like a huge atmospheric impact. It's like hitting like a big bell almost. That's what we're doing right there. So this is one of the demos for Black Label. And I had that Slidy Lead in mind. So this is kind of like the basis of what it was. Right here, so listen. So take a listen. I just wanted to show you guys like a different context of how you can use it. And I took that same exact preset, same processing, everything, and I played around with the pitch bend and just had like a simple melody on it. So that'll wrap this video up, and there's no full playthrough. So if you guys want to check out Black Label, I suggest, even if you don't plan on buying it, just check it out. There's a lot of really good sounds in there that I think, even if you don't make this type of music, I would say, like Stamps Records, Bass House, anything like that, just check it out. It's free. Get the free demo version, and I'll talk to you later.